Good morning and welcome to a special worship service for Community United Methodist Church in Keansburg, Colorado. My name is Matthew Perry. I am the organist as well as a lay servant for the church. Our service today is entitled Hymns of Faith, a collection of inspiring stories about our favorite hymns. I will read a short story about the hymn's origin and then play an arranged piece on the organ for you, the listener. Offerings and donations can be mailed to Community United Methodist Church at P.O. Box 195, Keansburg, Colorado 80643. You can also visit our webpage at www.CUMCKeansburg.org, which can link you to our Facebook and YouTube pages where you can stay current with us. Thank you for joining us, and please enjoy this special service. Our first hymn is about the most well-known hymn to anyone, How Great Thou Art. A violent storm inspired another well-loved hymn, also penned by a pastor and editor. This time it was on the rugged coast of Sweden in 1886 when a thunderstorm awed Karl Boberg, a Swedish minister who was also the editor of a Christian newspaper and a member of the Swedish parliament. Boberg was struck by the contrast of the calm after the bluster and blow of the storm. The coastal water, once again placid, turned to thousands of diamonds in the returning sunlight. I heard the birds sing sweetly in the trees, and their melody struck a chord in his heart. The words he penned, set to the melody of traditional Swedish folk song, would later be translated first into German and then Russian. Still, it languished in relative obscurity. Then in the 1930s, an English missionary to Czechoslovakia, Stuart Hine, heard the Russian version of the hymn. Boberg's original song consisted of the first three verses and the chorus. Hine translated them to the English and took them home with him at the outbreak of World War II. In 1948, while helping with refugees longing to return to their homelands, Hine added the fourth verse. When Christ shall come with shout of acclamation, and take me home, with joy shall fill my heart. Then I shall bow in humble adoration, and then proclaim, my God, how great thou art. The hymn soared to popularity after extensive use in Billy Graham's crusades. In 1974, it was selected as the favorite hymn among Americans in a poll conducted by the Christian Herald. Our next well-known hymn, What a Friend. Joseph Scriven, while living in Port Hope, Ontario in Canada, wrote What a Friend We Have in Jesus for his ailing mother in Ireland. Scriven had no intention that the words would ever be seen by anyone else other than his mother. A friend, however, noticed the verses during a visit and convinced Scriven to let the words be published. Ira Sankey, the gospel songwriter and musical evangelist for the D.L. Moody campaigns, discovered the words and included it in his collection of gospel hymns that he published with Philip Bliss in 1875. Much of Scriven's life was dedicated to helping others while accepting little or no pay. After graduating from Trinity College in Dublin, Ireland, Scriven was engaged to be married when his bride-to-be drowned on the eve before their wedding. In desperation and sorrow, Scriven deserted the Emerald Isle for Canada, moving to Port Hope at the age of 25. Again, he became engaged and again lost his fiancée tragically, this time to a sudden illness. It had been a decade since he bid his mother goodbye when he received word that she was seriously ill. Not able to be by her side, Scriven wrote this poem in hope that it would console her in her time of need. After the immortal lines of the poem were finally published, they were seen by composer Charles Converse, who set the simple words to a simple melody. At the age of 66, Scriven lost his life by drowning. Throughout his life, however, Joseph Scriven was a model of one totally dedicated his faith in God and service to others. After his death, friends erected a monument to him near Port Hope, which contains the words to his famous hymn. Our next well-known hymn is Blessed Assurance. Franny Crosby was blind, yet saw more clearly than most could ever hope through the eyes of faith. She wrote many hymns in her life, but none so enduring as Blessed Assurance. A verse of this beloved hymn now graces her tombstone. Blessed assurance, Jesus is mine. Oh, what a foretaste of glory divine. Heir of salvation, purchase of God, born of his Spirit, washed in his blood. Fanny moved to Bridgeport, Connecticut to live with her sister at the age of 80, where she dreamed of being able to see for the first time, as the words of her hymn reflect, perfect submission, perfect delight, visions of rapture now burst on my sight. Angels descending, bring from above, echoes of mercy, whispers of love. Franny lived just 1 month short of her 95th birthday. She continued to write hymns up until her death. One of her last hymns again reflected upon her faith that she would one day see as reflected in the lines, "And I shall see him face to face and tell the story saved by grace." Our next story is on a most well-known Christmas carol. Snow covered the countryside in pristine Obendorf, Austria, as the town approached Christmas in 1818. But a cultural crisis threatened the Christmas Eve service. The organ at the Church of St. Nicholas was broken and could not be repaired in time. Joseph Moore, who had attended a nativity play the evening of December 23rd, stopped on the way back to his home and looked back at the peaceful little village. Inspired by the serenity of the scene, he inked Still Noch upon his return. The next day he took the poem to the church organist Franz Gruber and asked him to compose a simple melody to accompany the words. Since the organ was out of service, Gruber composed the music on his guitar, and that evening, for midnight mass, Silent Night, Holy Night was performed for the first time. Moore didn't intend the carol to leave the village of Obendorf, but fate had a different plan. The organ repairman heard the song, obtained a copy, and spread it through Austria and Germany. It was performed in the United States for the first time in 1839 by a touring group of Austrian singers. It quickly won its way into the hearts of the people everywhere as one of the favorite Christmas carols ever composed. Our next well-known hymn, Abide With Me. Henry F. Light was seriously ill. The pastor of a poor church in a small fishing village along the coast of England, Light almost had to crawl to the pulpit to deliver his final sermon to his parish. Asthma and tuberculosis had taken their toll, and Light was forced to leave his beloved town for the warmer climate of Italy. Light was loved by his congregation as much as he loved them. He had labored long and hard in service to the parish. Even as his health deteriorated and the people pressed him to take better care of himself, he pushed onward. It was he who coined the phrase, "It is better to wear out than to rust out." But in 1847, he realized the time had come for him to step down. One last time, he walked to the sea along the shore which had so long been his home. He watched the setting sun and realized that he too was reaching the sunset of his life. He returned to his home with a deep melancholy and gave rise to a poem. Abide With Me, the verse on the emotions of that dark day, reflected the sorrow Light felt having to depart. Abide with us, for it is towards evening, and the day is far spent. Luke 24, verse 29. It also reflected the faith of a man who depended upon God to give him the strength to face the road ahead. He wrote, "Falls fast the evening tide, darkness deepens, Lord with me abide." Realizing that he was facing not just the end of his ministry in the small parish, but also the impending end of his life. Light wrote, "Swift to its close ebbs tide's life little day. Earth joys grow dim, its glories pass away. Change and decay, and in all around I see, O thou hast changest not, abide with thee." Light entrusted the poem with a friend who stored it in a trunk. The worn-out pastor died on his journey to Italy. 14 years later, the poem was rediscovered, put to the music of William Monk's Eventide, and became a favorite hymn among those facing sore trials in their lives. Our next well-known hymn is Great is Thy Faithfulness. From the dirge-filled book of the Scriptures, Lamentations, composer Thomas Chisholm found inspiration to write one of the most uplifting hymns of all time, Great is Thy Faithfulness. The book of Lamentations expresses the grief of the prophet Jeremiah over the continuing suffering of Judah and Jerusalem. After all, Israel and then Judah had fallen first into nation sin and then into the Lord's punishment as a result. Jeremiah remembers the good old days of the kingdom and laments its despise. But in the book Lament, Chisholm found a verse of promise. It is of the Lord's mercies that we are not consumed, because his compassions fail not. These are new every morning. Great is thy faithfulness. Lamentations chapter 3, verses 22 through 23. Chisholm's soaring composition continues to inspire the people around the world. well-known hymn to a well-known tune is Joyful, Joyful, We Adore Thee. Deafness brought us one of the most majestic hymns ever composed. Impossible, you may say, then consider the inspiring story of Joyful, Joyful, We Adore Thee. Henry Van Dyke, born 1852, died 1933, wrote the poetic verses to the hymn but needed music to match the soaring lyrics. Van Dyke, a famous minister and writer, settled on the final movement of Ludwig van Beethoven's Ninth Symphony as the melody that would carry the message to his joy-filled words. Van Dyke meshed the words to the movement, weaving a hymn that leaves the hearing thinking angels may have sung it. So now, was deafness a critical factor in the composition of Joyful, Joyful, We Adore Thee? The Ninth Symphony, considered to be many of Beethoven's best, was 6 years in writing because the great composer was stone deaf by this stage of his life. When the symphony debuted in Venice, Beethoven could not hear the orchestra, the chorus, the soloist, or the thunderous applause that succeeded the finale. Little did he know that Van Dyke's words and his music would melt together and become one of the best loved known hymns of all times. I present to you my own arrangement of Joyful, Joyful, We Adore Thee, with the bright fiery reeds on the organ.